My partner said prenups are offensive, and she'd walk out if I brought it up once more. I replied, okay. Then I raised it again. In the courtroom, amid the separation proceedings. I'm 32M, and I was engaged to Rachel, 29F. We'd been a couple for 2 years, cohabiting for the past one in a condo that belongs to me. On the outside, everything seemed fine. Rachel is the type who brightens any space, charismatic, sharp-minded, and stunning. We appeared to match perfectly, but I've discovered that a base can seem sturdy until it suddenly fractures. Some essential background. 3 years back, prior to knowing Rachel, I helped start a tech firm that was bought out. That deal transformed my economic situation entirely. I don't flaunt it. My existence is cozy, not lavish. I own a dependable car, and my main splurge is a modest yet expanding assortment of antique timepieces. Most of the proceeds from the acquisition are locked in extended-term investments. It's the foundation of my tomorrow. When I asked her to marry me half a year ago, my emotions were sincere. I envisioned a future together. But I'm inherently and occupationally a realist. Developing that business demanded planning and hazard control. I view my existence similarly. Safeguarding my holdings isn't due to insufficient affection. It's about excess accountability to my relatives, my ex-colleagues, and our possible kids. So, roughly a month passed, I introduced the topic. Premarital contract. I selected the timing thoughtfully. A serene night indoors. I prepared her preferred risotto. I held off until the dishes were removed, and we were at ease. Rachel, I started maintaining a soft manner. As we're advancing in nuptial arrangements, I believe we should talk about a prenup. The shift was immediate, like a lever being switched, turning the cozy area into a frosty quiet. A prenup? She placed her wine goblet down with a crisp snap. Samuel, why? It's not aimed at you, I clarified, attempting to steer the dialogue. It's simply sound monetary strategy. My holdings from pre-relationship are intricate. A prenup would merely establish a distinct boundary between what's mine, what's yours, and what turns into ours after tying the knot. All we create jointly from now is communal. This merely isolates the prior items. She rose, shoving her seat rearward. No, it divides you from me. It implies you lack faith in me, that you see me as another resource to oversee. That's not the case whatsoever. It's about avoiding later issues for us both. Her gaze, typically so affectionate, was squinted and stern. This is a slight. You're approaching matrimony with a getaway plan. It's the most pessimistic notion I've encountered. Then she issued the ultimate statement, her tone subdued and definitive. I'm stating this once. If you ever reference a prenup again, I'll exit that entrance and I won't return. We're constructing an existence on affection and confidence, not a juridical paper meant to shield your fortune. Conversation closed. I gazed at her. I observed the firm boundary she'd established. I registered the warning, and I evaluated it not as a passionate eruption, but as a clause in an agreement. She had precisely outlined the circumstance for her exit. In that tranquil instant, I formed my decision. All right, I stated. The loan term appeared to ease her ire. She interpreted it as my surrender. Her posture eased, and she approached to embrace me. Thanks for believing in me, she murmured. I adore you. That's the only safeguard we require. I embraced her in return, but the resolution was already fixed in my thoughts. She informed me what would cause her to depart. I chose to fulfill her desire, just not in the manner she anticipated. I haven't referenced the prenup afterward. The nuptial preparations have proceeded, and her folks, Gregory and Catherine, have grown more engaged. Their chats sprinkled with offhand references to my wealth. I once viewed it as harmless. Now I perceive it as scrutiny on their stake. I have a session with my attorney next week. Not to organize a union, but to plan a termination. Update 1. 3 weeks on. The circumstances have progressed. My consultation with my attorney, Deborah, affirmed my direction was correct. I described the demand, my choice, and my worries regarding the unavoidable consequences. Her counsel was direct. Gear up for a battle and record all. Individuals who sense entitlement to funds don't simply depart softly. She was accurate. The entitlement, formerly a faint undertone, turned into a surge following our discussion. It was as though overcoming the prenup signaled approval. The expenditures commenced initially. The extra credit card I provided her for home purposes abruptly experienced heavy use at luxury stores. A $4,000 purse there, a spa retreat with her mom, to unwind from nuptial prep here. I didn't challenge her. I merely settled the amount, notified the bank of possible fraud, and had it deactivated. I informed her a replacement was coming. It wasn't. Her parents, Gregory and Catherine, then executed their strategy. They asked me to their golf club for supper. A clear setup. Samuel, Gregory initiated, full of phony camaraderie and costly cognac. Catherine and I have eyed some homes for you pair. A splendid spot in the upscale area, ideal for family rearing. He pushed a shiny property pamphlet over the surface. The listed cost was bold. It's a lovely residence, but we're far from that, I responded courteously. Catherine's chuckle resembled ice clattering in a tumbler. Don't be humble, Samuel. You must invest that capital. It's a stake in the kin. Our kin. The ownership was oppressive. They weren't merely entering my kin. They were orchestrating a seizure. The real tipping point, though, was the timepiece. For my 30th, my grandpa presented me his 1968 Patek Philippe Calatrava. It's my most significant item, a relic of my family's legacy. Rachel loved it. Last year, I permitted her to don it to a formal event. A few weeks back, she requested to loan it for a philanthropic gathering. I consented. She never placed it back in my timepiece case. 2 days prior, I made the ask. Hey, I require my grandpa's watch returned. I plan to have it serviced. She was at her dressing table, putting on lip color. She locked eyes with me via the reflection, a small grin on her face. Don't be foolish. It suits me better. Consider it mine now. Part of the deal. My tone remained steady. Rachel, it's not a style item. It's an ancestral treasure. It's not a present. I need it returned. She pivoted completely, her look stiffening. Samuel, cease the yours and mine mindset. What's yours is mine. That's wedlock. It's ours now, and it's remaining with me. That was the ultimate verification. My belongings weren't merely utilized. They were appropriated. So yesterday I carried out the scheme. I transferred most of my fluid funds into fresh accounts. I altered every code. I noted each action with Deborah. Then I seated Rachel. Rachel, I stated, my tone composed and conclusive. This isn't succeeding. The betrothal is finished. Her expression shifted through astonishment, skepticism, and then a chilly, scheming rage. You're ending it with me? Over the prenup? After we settled? You issued me a demand. I answered steadily. You defined the conditions for your leave. I'm merely honoring your desires. She switched from angry to frozen instantly. You don't comprehend what you've initiated, Samuel. You'll rue this. She promptly phoned her dad. I could discern his furious, subdued tone from the opposite side. She gathered a suitcase for the night, mainly with items I'd purchased for her, and departed. This morning, the initial message from her attorney came. He's a top associate at a practice famed for making splits into fierce contests. They're advancing, but they'll discover that although I'm a reserved guy, I'm not a feeble one. And the primary task on my attorney's list is an official request for the restitution of my timepiece. Update 2. 1 month on. It's been a period of tactical conflict. Yvonne's initial strike was a claim note that was an expert display in bold fabrication. Their attorney, a predator called Mr. Patrick, isn't foolish. His approach isn't founded on readily refuted falsehoods, but on distorting truths and using the menace of a prolonged, open, and costly dispute. They aren't demanding half my wealth. They're wiser. They're seeking a substantial payout in acknowledgement of Rachel's concessions and inputs to the spousal alliance. This encompasses professional concession, asserting she sidelined her occasion-coordinating job to aid my rigorous routine and communal duties. Fair share in the residence, contending that during the year she resided in my condo, her uncompensated work as a home overseer and adorner generated fair stake for which she ought to be compensated to the amount of $250,000. Enabling commerce. This was their major tactic. They assert a particular prosperous venture capital I undertook was the straight outcome of a supper gathering Rachel organized where she cleverly and intentionally presented me to a vital financier. They aren't claiming she originated the concept, but that she generated the chance. Way of life sustenance and psychological harm. A one-time payment of $1.5 million to permit her to sustain the way of life she's adapted to and for the mental injury of a violated vow. And naturally, the Patek Philippe is noted as a present, representing the Pledge of Union, and is thus her asset. The defamation effort started gently. Entries from Catherine regarding the emptiness of fresh wealth, and Gregory noting to shared contacts how let down he was that my personality wasn't as robust as my holdings. This has been taxing, I admit. There was an evening last week where I stayed awake till 3 a.m. gazing at the roof, sensing the burden of everything. It seemed like an assault from every angle. For a brief instant, I grasped why folks compromise. The idea of simply issuing a payment to end it all was alluring. It appeared my existence had become an adversarial acquisition attempt. I contacted Deborah the following day, sensing beaten. Perhaps we should offer them something, I suggested. Let me pose a query, Samuel, she responded, her tone resolute. The venture they're referencing. The supper gathering. What's the actual account? The supper occurred, I confessed. She did present me to the individual, but the basis for the arrangement was already set. I had been negotiating with his firm for weeks. The supper was merely a sociable event, a courtesy. Can you demonstrate it? She inquired. I devoted the next 2 hours sifting through ancient messages. And I located it. A sequence of emails between me and the financier, detailing the basics of the arrangement. The concluding email, where we consented to advance, was timed 1 complete week before Rachel's supper gathering. My instant of hopelessness faded, substituted by a stark, firm determination. But Deborah highlighted a flaw. They can still contend the supper cemented the arrangement. It's an ambiguous zone they'll attempt to utilize. They're striving to construct a tale of input, regardless of how weak. So we devised our retaliation. We didn't merely reject their assertions, we diminished them and generated our own advantage. For her home oversight, we assembled bills from the regular cleaning crew and the interior stylist I employed before she arrived. For her professional concession, we extracted her online profiles, packed with updates about thrilling fresh initiatives and enjoying the grind. And for the timepiece, we intensified. Deborah dispatched an official note to Mr. Patrick requiring the prompt restitution of the item. When they answered it was a present, we advanced to the subsequent phase. Deborah submitted a writ of replevin, an official civil proceeding to compel the restitution of improperly retained property. It's not a felony accusation, but it's an independent, costly juridical struggle that Rachel would need to contest, and one she'd nearly surely forfeit. They've declined our counterproposal, which was for her to collect her items and go, and insisted on arbitration. They assume they can scare me face to face. The appointment is fixed for next Tuesday. They think their argument has sufficient credibility to drain me. They're on the verge of learning how severely they've erred. Final update: 1 week it's concluded. I'm in my condo. It's hushed, save for the gentle clicking of a 1968 Patek Philippe Calatrava positioned on the table next to me. The heaviness of it seems altered now, not solely a link to my history, but an emblem of a tomorrow I just protected. The arbitration yesterday resembled a drama where only part of the performers knew the conclusion. We were in a barren meeting space, me and Deborah on one flank, Rachel, her folks, and their attorney, Mr. Patrick, on the opposite. Rachel donned attire that likely exceeded the price of my initial vehicle, a guise of injured opulence. Gregory perched like a guard dog, all brewing anger. Catherine was the image of sorrowful parenthood. Mr. Patrick started crafting a story of my betrothed's shattered emotions and shattered assurances. He discussed her steadfast aid, her vital communal inputs, and the balanced alliance she thought she was forming. He depicted me as a detached schemer who exploited her affection and then abandoned her at the initial hint of equity. He offered their sensible requests as a method for me to act rightly. When he concluded, Deborah allowed the quiet to linger for a moment. Then she accessed her dossier. Mr. Patrick, she commenced, her tone serene and distinct. My client is truly here to fulfill a pledge, the one Miss Rachel Vaughn offered to him. She gazed straight at Rachel. On the night of April 28th, you informed my client, if you ever reference a prenup again, I will exit that entrance and I will not return. You offered this as an unyielding condition of your bond. My client has merely opted to embrace your conditions. The subject was brought up again in your juridical submissions, and thus we are here to enable your exit, as you demanded. The hue faded from Catherine's visage. Gregory's mandible clenched. Deborah then proceeded to the assertions. Item by detailed item, she disassembled their story. She displayed the bills from the cleaners and stylist, rendering the $250,000 home overseer assertion ridiculous. She exhibited captures of Rachel's own online updates, bragging about her job successes during the period she was allegedly forfeiting it. Then she tackled the cornerstone of their monetary assertion, the supper gathering. We don't contest that Miss Rachel Vaughn arranged a charming supper. Deborah yielded, which caused Mr. Patrick to straighten. Nonetheless, she proceeded, pushing a binder across the surface. This is a reproduced sequence of emails between my client and the financier at issue. As you can observe from the dates, an outline agreement was achieved a full 7 days before the supper gathering your client arranged. The supper was a sociable nicety, not a commerce trigger. Her input was that of a polite entertainer, for which my client was and stays appreciative. The worth of that input, however, is not $0.5 million. Mr. Patrick's expression became stiff as he perused the emails. He realized he'd forfeited his primary advantage. But Deborah wasn't finished. She reserved the timepiece for the end. Lastly, there is the issue of the Patek Philippe, she stated. It was a present, Rachel maintained, her tone breaking. We differ, Deborah said bluntly. She then pushed another paper across the surface. It wasn't a law enforcement document. It was something much more potent. This, she stated, is a submitted duplicate of the writ of replevin we started to ensure the restitution of my client's asset. It is now an official judicial affair. As you are aware, Mr. Patrick, disregarding a judicial directive to restore property can lead to accusations of civil defiance. But it becomes more intricate. She inclined forward a bit. My client's holdings, including this particular timepiece, are protected by a premium insurance coverage. The coverage mandates him to assist completely in the retrieval of any misplaced or pilfered objects. By submitting this writ, we have met our duty. If your client declines to adhere to the judicial directive, we will advance with an insurance demand. And then, the insurer's juridical unit, with their virtually boundless assets, will invoke their right of substitution. They will pursue Ms. Rachel Vaughn, not only for the worth of the timepiece, but for all related juridical costs. I can guarantee you, their attorneys are far more forceful and far less agreeable to handle than I am. The endgame wasn't a warning of incarceration. It was the warning of economic ruin by a corporate behemoth. Gregory, the alleged mogul of commerce, comprehended right away. He stared at his offspring with complete wrath, not for her actions, but for how disastrously she had botched. He was facing an endless abyss of juridical expenses. Mr. Patrick raised a palm. May we have a minute? They exited. The yelling that penetrated the door this time was not subdued. It was unfiltered and frantic. 20 minutes on, they re-entered, vanquished. My clients retract all monetary assertions, Mr. Patrick declared, his tone lacking all its prior arrogance. Ms. Rachel Vaughn will restore the timepiece and collect her individual items by Friday. And that was the end. Rachel had the timepiece sent by messenger this morning. She's relocating her possessions tomorrow. I don't feel victorious. I simply experience a deep feeling of alleviation. The stillness in my condo feels deserved. They didn't desire a union founded on affection. They desired a consolidation. And when I declined to endorse their pact, they attempted to launch an adversarial seizure. They discovered today that I will perpetually guard my stakes, particularly the ones that have zero relation to funds.